Hey, this is Scott Townsend, and I'm glad to announce that we've got 2 new subscribers to the show, Pop's Daylight Donuts and Castafly Outdoor Adventures. The first one, Pop's Daylight Donuts, man, they've got the best tasting donuts, sausage wraps, pastries in Northeast Oklahoma. And also, if you'll tell the staff there, hey, Scott Townsend said to give me a large spicy pig, they'll give you a free large spicy sausage wrap. But you have to tell them Scott Townsend sent you. So tell them, hey, Scott Townsend told me to tell you to give me a large spicy pig. So there's the offer. There's the call to action. So go to Pop's Daylight Donuts. Say hi to Mark for me. And go to Pop's Daylight Donuts and get you some. The other sponsor is Castafly Outdoor Adventures.
Adventure. That's where it begins. We look to create and document our moments in time while embracing the majestic wonder and beauty of the great outdoors. Our quest is to explore the back roads of the Ozarks, camping, fishing, and just getting lost. Refresh your spirit and join us on our next adventure.
Paul and his crew invite you to subscribe to the Castafly Outdoor Adventures YouTube channel.
Welcome to the Scott Townsend Show, brought to you by Dietzo Man Productions.
Hey, this is Scott Townsend, and thanks for joining the Scott Townsend Show. And today I've got with me a good friend of mine. We've known each other for quite a while now, Keith McPhail with BMonthly magazine. Hey, Keith, how's it going?
Hey, Scott, doing great. Thank you for having me on your show today.
You bet. So Keith is the Director of Marketing and Sales for BMonthly, which I got a copy of it right here. So if you haven't read it, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, get you a copy. You can find them anywhere here in Bartlesville, that is. This is kind of a hyper-local magazine, but what we're going to be talking about today is universal and goes from coast to coast, north to south. So yeah, today we're talking about an article that Keith wrote. And I was reading this. I mean, my jaw kind of dropped because you know what? I didn't know anything about this.
And we work together.
But nor should I. I mean, it's none of my business. But so Keith wrote this article in the what issue is this? Is this the February issue of BMonthly? And so let me just go through the first paragraph here. You say, throughout my life, I've been homeless, witnessed death, and left fatherless. And so when I read that, I was like, what? So anyway, I kept going. I've stopped my beating heart 3 times by overdosing. I've lied, cheated, and stolen. I have wept. I was bound by the chains of addiction. I have had physical and sexual abuse thrown on my young body. I have screamed at God for answers. I was scared to live, but more afraid to die. I've been lonely, shattered to pieces, and my soul lost. I crawled my way through some of the darkest moments in complete desperation. When all my hope seemed lost, and I mean all, his mercy found me. Wow, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it over to you. What made you write this?
Well, I mean, me and my wife, Christy, we've been running this magazine for the last 4 years. The magazine's been out it'll be 10 years this September coming up. And so I've written a lot of stories about my past in the magazine, and I kind of combined all of those into this one article that I wrote this last February. And I'm just very transparent. I really don't have anything to hide. I told Christy when I first wrote our love story, which kind of opened up our past and the things that we went through as a couple and what I went through as an individual. I wrote that February of 2019. And so I didn't want people to say, hey, there's that Keith McPhail guy who used to be a drug addict or who used to do cocaine. And so I just threw it all out there. I didn't have anything to hide. And so I'm very transparent in the fact that my story can help somebody else. And, I always had 4 or 5 people that fed into my life, most of my life, who A, never gave up on me, B, kept me accountable. And so when I wrote this story, and as you read it, it's very open, and I don't hide anything. I talk about my scars on my arms and my legs. I talk about, shooting cocaine in my arms. It all started, not really started, but, I first got high and when I was 14 years old, when I lived in Arkansas, right before I moved to Oklahoma. And they say marijuana is a gateway drug. I can probably agree with that a little bit, but I'm not 100% on that. But, and so from that point, the first time I ever did cocaine, I snorted it like everybody else does. And it just went from that point. It really goes, if you want to dig deep into my story a little bit, it goes back to when I was born, my real father walked out on me and my brother and my mom when I was, I think, 6 days old. And so the father that I thought was my real father was actually my stepfather. And I didn't find that out until I was messing around in the attic and found my birth certificate. And on that birth certificate, my last name at that time was Jones. Well, on the birth certificate, it said Keith Wayne Hickman. So I'm thinking, well, my name's Jones. Why does it say Hickman? And so the man who has been physically abusing me for the last 7 years of my life actually is not my real father. And
Wow.
So that's a kind of a thing that at 12 years old, when you're trying to find who you are and trying to find out what you're doing in life, that was devastating. He was very abusive to me and my older brother. My younger brother and younger sister, that was their real dad. And so he never was abusive to them. So very abusive to my mom. And so she got out of that marriage. She met Keith McPhail, which is where I got my name, McPhail. We moved to Oklahoma. And, at 15 years old, moving to a new city, new state. I was ready for a change, but, you're trying to fit in, be the new guy in town. So, anyway, that's kind of how that all started. And then, when I was 17 years old, my stepdad, Ken McPhail, we didn't get along very well. And that's because of me, not because of him. I didn't like rules and I didn't like regulations, all the things that teenager kids do. And so
I still don't.
No, I don't either. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. My wife tells me all the time, you need more rules. So, I got kicked out of the house. But when I was 16 years old, I went to my first treatment center here in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, when they had one there at Jane Phillips Medical Center.
Oh, yeah.
So I was there when I was 16 years old. He said, either you go to treatment or you go to boot camp or go to military school. So I decided I wanted to stay here and go to treatment center. So it was more of a vacation for me than anything else. But when I started doing cocaine and really started snorting it and then went to smoking it, and then when I started injecting it, it was over for me. I've got probably a very addictive personality, and so it wasn't good. So for 6 years, from the age of 17 to the age of 23, I was lost. I OD'd twice. I was homeless. I was just going to church. I was going to couch, buddies' houses to buddy houses, and really lost. And for one thing, I didn't know Jesus. And by his grace and mercy do I sit and talk to you today, Scott, because without that, I wouldn't be here today. So anyway, that's kind of how it all started.
So how did you come out of that? I mean, that first situation, what?
Oh, I mean, I think I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I knew my life wasn't going anywhere. I mean, it was going to job. I dropped out of school. I didn't even finish. I don't even have my diploma. So I never got my GED. So those 6 years of my life, I was just really gone, really lost, going to party. And then I met my first wife, my ex-wife, and then we got married and had kids. And that's what happened is I grew up a little bit and had kids and had responsibilities that I had to take care of. And so that's probably why I got out of it more than anything, for that reason. So, but the one thing that I do want to say is that when you're in that darkness, it's dark. And I always, because who you think your friends are aren't really your friends. I always tell my kids today, you show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
And so and no one said that to me. And I didn't have a father. And so my stepdad, Keith McPhail, he committed suicide. And so my real dad walked out on me when I was 5 days old. My stepdad abused me for 6-7 years. And then my other stepdad committed suicide. So I've never had a father figure in my life. So I knew when I had kids, I wanted to be a different father. I'm so far from being a perfect father. My kids can give you a list of things that I do wrong every day.
Me too.
So, but there's no one that loves them more than me. And,
right.
And so I think that's one thing that we forget about. It all starts at the home. And I didn't have a good home life. And there's a lot of kids out there today that don't have good home lives. And those are the kids that have even come to me today after reading my stories that I write and thank me for sharing my story, because it gives them hope. And that's all I'm trying to do, is give people hope, and that we all fall from grace every day, and we shouldn't be ashamed of our past. We shouldn't be ashamed of what we've gone through. We should share those stories, because your story will change somebody's life. You can put, in my words that I say cocaine, you can put pornography in there. You can put alcohol in there. You can put food in there. Just because I did cocaine and addicted to it doesn't mean someone else has an issue with something going on in their lives.
Right.
So that's what I always tell people. You can put whatever adjective you want to put in there. So I think that's an adjective. Is that an adjective?
Or, we'll go with that. Is it a noun or verb?
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. What do I look like, an English major?
You kind of do with the glasses.
Everybody's got a thing.
Yeah.
And and some of us are better at dressing up the thing than others.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reminded of that scene in Jaws where Robert Shaw and Dreyfus are sitting around the table, and he's talking about the USS Indianapolis. And what's the police chief's name? Anyway, Roy Scheider. He's got a bump on his head, and Robert Shaw goes, "Don't worry, that'll be permanent. You want to see something permanent?" He pulls out a tooth, that's permanent. And then Richard Dreyfuss goes, "Well, if you want to see something, here's where a moray eel bit into my wetsuit." And then Shaw goes, "Well, then here, take a look at this." And so they start
Scars.
And that's our scars are our stories. And so when Robert Shaw says, what was that one he had? He had a scar on his leg. He said this was from blah blah blah. And then he said, I got a bump on my head from a fight I got into at the St. Patty's Day party in Boston. So every scar had a time, a date, and a situation. And so I always think about that when people are talking about hiding their scars. Because we really don't need to be hiding. We're so obsessed with hiding our scars, and yet, for example, when you why am I doing all the talking here? I'm going to shut up. But when you see somebody with a scar, you might not say something to them about it unless you want to be really awkward. But you might look at somebody and go, "Wonder how they got that scar," for whatever reason. And
and I talk about my scars in my story. I can't show you, but in this arm here, I don't have any veins because they're all gone because I've shot so much dope in that arm. It's both arms. And I've got a scar on my leg that I was trying to inject cocaine in my vein in my leg, and I missed. And so it was big enough to almost put a baseball in.
Wow.
So, and I talk about those scars, and I show people today if they ask, and they do. And so, but those are scars that I'm not proud of those scars, but I'm not afraid to show those scars and talk about how I came about those scars, because, people put Band-Aids on stuff, and people put it on Facebook and how their life is so great and their kids are so great. And
vacation's so great.
Oh yeah. Disney World was so great. The first when we went to Disney World, So me and my wife, we have 7 kids. Me and Christy have 7 kids. So backstory real quick on us. So we were high school sweethearts. When I first moved to Oklahoma, I first saw her at McDonald's parking lot and instantly fell in love and never been out of love. And so when we dated in high school, I screwed up like most guys do when they're 16 years old, 17 years old, and we broke up. Our families have known each other since the 50s, 40s, and 50s. So our families were really close, not really close, but they were close. And so I would always check in with her family to see how she was doing. She got married and had 3 kids. I got married and had 3 kids. And then 17 years later, we came back together and started dating. And then we got married. And so then we had our daughter, Grace.
What do people need to know that have a friend who might be in your situation, but they don't know how to
fix it or how to
approach? Or, I mean, is it words, or is it just someone coming over and sitting down and watching TV with you? What does support look like?
Well, I mean, I think support, it's got to start in your heart. I mean, for me, I had to have Jesus in my life. I mean, I had to have that anchor in my life, but besides my wife. I always call Grace our anchor because I believe this, and Christy maybe disagree with it, but if it wasn't for Grace, she wouldn't have stayed. She loved me enough and loved me so much that she didn't want to sit there and watch me die.
Yeah.
And so if it wasn't for our daughter, Grace, we wouldn't have been together. And I just believe that. And so we call her the anchor, because what really happened is, Christy was there for me the first year and a half of our marriage, and she was the anchor of the family and held it together. And then a year and a half later, we lost Tyler, who was accidentally shot in a garage and was killed instantly. And he just had turned 17 years old. And so for her, when you get that phone call saying Tyler's been shot, your whole world changes instantly. And it did that day, October 8th of 2009. So when we lost Tyler, I became her anchor then. I became the man that I was supposed to be the day that I said I do. And
that's good. That's great. It seems like it's a disease. It doesn't seem like it's a disease really of the brain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's when someone first gets high or takes their first drink or something, you get that shot of dopamine, and your brain's just like, wow, that's really cool. So you want to do it again. Unfortunately, then we start overriding the system with abuse. What they tell you in rehab as far as how to fix it?
Oh, well, I mean, being the 6 times I've been to rehab, I've been to rehab 6 times, yeah. But I mean, the last 2 times I went, addiction, Dawn Marie Kolaw, who was one of our counselors when we were going through all of our stuff, because I remember Christy asking her, have you ever known of anybody like our story who's made their marriage work? And she said, no, but you can be the first. And we were the first that she'd ever dealt with. And I think with addiction, it all is, I'll always say this, it starts at home. It just starts at home. When you push your kids to the side and you put them in their room, they're watching TV or they're doing their games or whatever, and there's no, for us, when I was growing up, it's a lot different today, obviously, when we grew up, Scott. We could get on our bikes and leave all day and be home by night.
Right. No helmets.
We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have all that stuff. Mom just said be home by dark.
Right.
And so
when the porch light's on, yeah.
Exactly. And I wouldn't let my daughter ride outside of Covington Park if she wanted to.
Right.
So our world has changed, but when it comes to addiction, I just think it is in the brain, but also too, you've got to have that compass. You got to have that moral compass in your heart and inside your soul that's going to point you forward into that. You need to believe in people. I mean, I always tell people, we've been doing a lot of things with the homeless here in Bartlesville lately. And, I spoke to them the other day and I just said, you've got to have someone willing to give you a hand up, but you got to be willing to take that hand and do something with it.
Sure. That's absolutely right.
And so there are people out there that just don't want to change and don't want the help. But there are people that are lost in those cracks. And I was one of those people for that 6 years that I was doing my crazy stuff.
Right.
I didn't have people feeding into me. I wasn't going to church. I wasn't doing all the things I was supposed to do. I just wanted to know where the next party was and how much drugs and alcohol I could do at the time. And so I just always believe that you got to, when you see somebody suffering, you can't be quiet about it. When you know somebody's doing something they shouldn't be doing and they're a friend, you've got to be a friend enough to care about them enough to say, hey, buddy, what's going on? You're not normal. What's going on?
Right.
And if we can do that,
right.
If something, and that, we all know that, but we want to hide behind and not worry about it, or, maybe Facebook will fix it, or maybe whatever. But it's true. People put on Facebook how good their lives are, but they're not. Marriages, half of marriages today are ending because it's so easy to get a divorce now. And I've been divorced. My wife's been divorced. And so we know how that is on a family, but we've always said that family's going to come first. Our kids are going to come first. When you're first married, the kids try to plot against you, this kid, this stepkid, this kid. And we finally just said, our marriage is first. You kids are going to be second. That's how it starts. I mean, we put our kids first, but we don't. I mean, our marriage is first.
Right. There's no playing one off the other here. We're together. Yeah, I said I always tell the joke about I married my wife for her looks, but not for the ones she's been giving me lately.
I like that. Well, I want to also say real quick that when I write my magazine, I'm very upfront and very transparent. But there's what I love about it is I get phone calls or I get Facebook messages or whatever. There's a guy that he's not a kid anymore. He's 27 years old, but his first name's Aaron. But I used to coach him in football when I was coaching my kids back in 6th grade. So this would have been, 15 years ago or whatever. And so he got his mom would get my magazine. His mom lives here. He lives in Atlanta, Georgia, but his mom would get my magazines. And every time I would write a story, she would send it to him. And so he kept reading my stories, and then one day he was hooked on heroin really bad, 5 years, and he was injecting heroin. And I can say I've done every drug out there, and I'm proud of this, but I never did heroin because I was afraid if I ever did heroin, I would die.
That's the way I was with cocaine.
Right. Right. So and so Aaron came back to visit his mom, and she asked him, would I meet with Aaron? And I did. I met with Aaron, got up in his butt. I did all the things that, I know all the signs. I know all the things. He was high when he was talking
tricks,
to me. Yeah. He was high when he was talking to me. So, but he went back to Atlanta, and 2 months later, I get a text on my phone saying, I just checked myself into treatment. And today we still stay in touch. He's been clean 9 months. All of his court stuff that he had in front of him just kind of disappeared. God kind of took care of all that stuff. He's got a 4-year-old daughter that his life is back with again. And he got saved. Yes. And that's the most important thing. He texted me one day and said, I went to church today and I gave my life to Jesus. And that's it. I could write every story for the next 30 years. And that's the only success story I need to hear right there.
Right.
That my words help someone with his walk with Christ, and that he got saved. And how many generations will that help? His daughter and her daughters and her kids. And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I could help one person. And that's why I write. If I can just help one person, I don't care. But people judge me. They can look different at me. They can look down at me. I don't care. If I can help one person, become free of drugs or alcohol or any kind of addiction because of my story, good. I'm all good about that.
And so that's really cool about this podcast is I'm sure that there's going to be someone out there listening. Like I said earlier at the beginning, this is a universal story. Whether you're in California, living in Florida, you're up in Canada, whatever, all this stuff, there's no difference really, you know? And so the story, the message that you bring today can help somebody no matter where they are.
Amen.
Whether they're in the living homeless in LA or they're in a mansion in Beverly Hills, this story, your story, can help somebody overcome and live another day. You know, everybody wakes up with worth.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what work you do or don't do, you're still worth. You still got worth. But you know what I was thinking? Not only is it addiction, not only is it problems that we have, but you know, even I wrote this down: self-limiting thoughts. I mean, you can not have one drink, you can have not one, you know, never smoke, never drink, whatever. But if right here you think I can't do it, I'm worthless, I'm a big pile of junk,
yep,
you're done.
When you go so far down, you start losing your job and start losing everything in your life, you better wake up to the fact that the next thing might be your life. And so finding your stepdad with a hole in his head blown off because he shot himself is not an image you want to remember, but it's also not where you want to go either. And so I was always afraid, but when you're in the addiction, you don't have no fear. I mean, that's why people that are addicted to drugs can be out when it's -5 degrees with shorts on because you don't feel the pain. And so I just the one thing I want to tell people more than anything is you got to get right with yourself, but you got to get right with the Lord, your God, or whoever you want to say that is. But for me, it's Jesus Christ. And so I had to get right with myself and with him. And once I started listening to the things he was telling me to do, and people might say, well, God doesn't talk to you. Well, he talked to me. And so I'm going to say that because I started getting my life together, and 14 years later, nobody remembers Keith McPhail shooting dope in his arm unless I tell you.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know about it until I read that article, you know, the other day. And then I called you up. I was like, Keith, what's going on here, man?
Exactly. And so here I am, a guy that over 20,000 people read this magazine every month. Nobody knows all that unless I tell them. And then when I do tell people, they're like, I would never known that. And so for people that are saying, gosh, people are going to find out what I'm doing. They're going to find out I'm addicted to porn. They're going to find out I'm an alcoholic. Who cares?
Yeah.
Get right with yourself and get yourself fixed, because there's so many people that depend on you.
Right.
I mean, when people, this is one thing I hate about suicide is once you do that, the lasting effect that you have on people, it goes for years, it goes forever.
Generations.
And it's just not worth it. And I know it gets hard, and look, I've slept in my car many weeks and many months. I know how it is to be out there with no one that cares about you, but people do care about you. The people that prayed for me is my mama, rest her soul, she's in heaven today. My mom and Christy, I tell you, those two ladies, the prayer warriors, I'm going to say her name, Marie McCullough. If it wasn't for her, I mean, she fed into us. You just got to have people who believe enough in you that's going to help you see that this is not the person you're supposed to be. You're made in God's image, and that's a beautiful thing. And so just keep going, keep moving forward, never quit, never give up. And no, everybody says that, but it's the truth, because every day you're going to wake up, you're either going to wake up in darkness, or you're going to wake up with light. And I end my story in that thing saying the shadow of the cross is what the darkness was, because look, I've seen a lot of bad things in my life. I've seen a lot of people do a lot of bad things. I've seen people die in front of me. A lot of bad drug deals, a lot of bad stuff happened. But one thing that I always say, that shadow, that darkness I was walking through, I really believe that was the shadow of the cross protecting me through all that. And that's a great thing, because today I'm able to feed into people and to help people, not just on this podcast, but people that read the magazine, people that I'm able to talk to at the gym. I go to the gym twice a day. It's my addiction. I'm addicted to the gym, and that's better than being addicted to cocaine. But
right.
that's my sanctuary where I can help people. I've got six guys saved in the last 12 years at the gym that never maybe would have been saved.
Mm-hmm.
That now they're going to heaven, and now their families are going to church. And so that's good. That's so good.
I'm going to end it right there. I think that's a really good place to end it.
Yes, sir.
The magazine is BMonthly magazine. And that cover, we didn't even talk about the cover, of course, but that's an amazing story that you need to read about. The Greenwood
Massacre. Yeah.
Yeah.
Greenwood Massacre.
Just
Horrible story.
Unbelievable. But, if you want more information, how do people get in touch with you, or what's a good way to, I tell you what, if someone needs help, where does someone go to get help? If I'm in California, if I'm in New York, if I'm in Italy, is there a number you can call? Is there?
I'm sure, the National Drug Line, I don't know what that number is, but, there's so many churches out there. There's so many organizations out there. The Salvation Army. I mean, they'll help you. But I would always say go to a church. Walk into a church.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't care if you're from California or Canada or wherever you're hearing this from. You can call me. My number is 918-214-4968, and you can call me anytime, day or night. People do it all the time.
Oh,
but
man.
no, seriously, you can go on there, and I've written probably about 20 stories throughout the 4 years, and so you can go to BartlesvilleMonthly.com and you can read all the stories, all my back issues. They're all on there. So I can't tell you each month that they're on there, but
right.
It's a good read. There's a lot of good history about Bartlesville in this area. So, or you can message us on Facebook, Bartlesville Monthly Magazine on Facebook. And so instant message me there.
Right.
But no, just call me. I'm serious about that. People can call me anytime. I'm not ever worried about someone calling me. I don't care if I know you or not. I've walked your walk. I've seen that darkness. I've seen that being scared, not knowing what to do or where to go. But if I was out there by myself and didn't have any family members, I would go find a church.
Right.
That's my help.
I would definitely agree with that. So check out the BMonthly magazine if you're in Bartlesville. If you're not in Bartlesville, can you still get it? I mean, can it be mailed to you, or?
Yeah, we have subscribers in 19 different states.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can find all that on BartlesvilleMonthly.com, and it's a great read, and it's a great magazine. That one right there that you held up, we print about 12,500 magazines every month, 12,500 magazines, and we were out of magazines in 6 days.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
crazy.
The Greenwood tragedy there. That's quite a story. You need to, if you haven't heard it, read about it. It's a kind of a secret around here, but thanks for taking the lid off of that one. Sure. And so if you like this podcast, I invite you to subscribe, like, share. If you see this on YouTube, same thing, like it, write a review, subscribe. Or you can, this is something I think is really cool, is Alexa. If you have Alexa, you can say, hey, I won't say her name, but hey, blank, play the Scott Townsend Show, and she'll start playing it. So
really?
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So you can listen to it on this show on your smart speaker. So anyway, that's it. Well, thanks for your time, Keith. It's 12. Yeah, we're right on the money here. So appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
You betcha. Well, for Keith McPhail, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for joining the Scott Townsend Show, and we'll talk to you later.
The Scott Townsend Show is a Deetso Man production. For more episodes, visit the Scott Townsend Show YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.